Welcome all you surfers to the 2019 Mega T-Square. And this one's going to have us all feeling fairly frustrated. Some of us are going to feel like giving up. Some of us are going to feel like we're in quicksand. Others are going to be revving their tires in mud and not being going anywhere. Others are going to be deeply in conflict or full up war with themselves. And for those of you who are new to the show, I'd like to welcome you. What we're trying to do here is to pinpoint the main energies that are going to be affecting the most people on this planet. And then we're going to give you the solutions. And so towards the end of this broadcast is where all the how to behave and maximize the energies that are available. This one's going to be hard, and we use different protocols to get both the answers to the question of what is the main energy. We use astrology. We have two forms of astrology. And then we use the I-Ching for solutions. And we also look at the collective dreams so that we can see what everybody's dreaming about and we can know where the collective is headed. Dreams are magical because they pick up all sorts of subconscious material, and the subconscious realm is it's definitively the more powerful of the mind. The conscious mind is limited because it's slower. It has to relearn everything every time. The subconscious just takes over, and so whatever the subconscious is doing is actually more important because it's going on below the radar. And it knows, as you'll see, it knows that there is trouble ahead. All right. So in the summary slide, we have the astrology in purple. And because of the Mega T-Square, that's over here on the left side. On the right side are some solutions, and we'll get into those solutions. But overall, the punchline for the astrology for this week is, I called it, quote, the imploding, unquote. Okay, and it feels like an implosion, but like this sucking thing. It's like the Big Bang, if you will. Everything's coming into a center, but it's imploding and not exploding. And I'll explain exactly why I'm saying that. But then the dream bot, which we'll talk about right after this slide, is like spinning in mud. And there's a lot of negativity associated with that. And then when we did the I-Ching coins and we cast those coins, it was I-Ching 35, which is darkening of the light. We had two change lines, but I just found it incredible that darkening of the light comes in when, especially with the imploding thing. It is all overlapped. I have that here, but I'm fairly conservative in the congruency score, which is 0.8. Ultimately, if you're wanting a punchline for the solution, it's the strength to end the conflict, because that's what when you do I-Ching 35 with change lines 2 and 5, you come up with I-Ching 6, and that's the solution. But there's so much more to this. It's not that easy. It's not easy just to say, have the strength to end the conflict. What the heck does that even mean? This is the title. This is the summary page. It's time to get into the details of the influence. And then at the end, we'll talk about the solution. Let's get started after this. And if this is your first time here, I highly recommend you punch that subscribe button and hit the little bell so that you know when a new surf report is coming up. We're going to start having some special programs here, some special experts coming on. That's going to be a slow process, but I did have that old project for those of you who are regular here. I did get that project done, and so we're full steam ahead. But according to the I-Ching, this week is not the time to be starting new projects. Plus, I have a trip to Iowa that I'm going to be doing, so that's going to slow down. It might affect next week's report, but we'll talk about that towards the end. And let's get started in today's CIRF report for this week. We start with the dream bot. And like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at a lot of red arrows, which are immovable negativity. That's the meme that I've established for there's so many red arrows here. And of course, the top words in people's dreams are plant and gas. That could denote lots of different things, but it went well with this immovable negativity because you're hitting the gas and not going anywhere. I mean, the first two words, I'm hitting gas, and yet I'm being planted right here. Parked, lay, counter, laying. And there's even winter and Christmas. What is that all about? Well, things are frozen. It's immovable. It's just sitting there and remove and leave and end. So anyway, a lot of negativity there, a lot of heaviness, a lot of vulnerability. Then the blue arrows are healing lessons because we have class and healing. Class can also be a couple different things, but it goes well with the positivity of what we're going through. This T-square is going to hone us. This T-square is going to be chiseling out the diamond to where we are healed and brighter on the other side of this, but it's not going to feel good going through it. But it's not all negative. The collective unconscious sees some bright possibilities here. And we know, that's the third meme in the orange, is we know that there are gifts. That's the Christmas and know and realize and count. We're counting the gifts that we're getting out of this T-square. But good news, I don't need you to be the optimistic person going through this week. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Really interesting. Let's get into the astrology. This is the source of all the T-square energy. First and foremost, this is strikingly similar to the latter part of last week when we talked about the T-square, but it wasn't. It was just starting, and so very early on in the energies, but now it's here, and this week some of these alignments are going direct. Now let's talk about the red. This in the red is the T-square, and then for those of you who don't know what a T-square is, you got a 90 degree and a 90 degree made also with an opposition. Now on this one end of the opposition, you've got 4 planets there. You got Mercury, Sun, Mars, and Venus. Now, when we have planets together like this, we call this a stellium with more than three or more planets together. But that energy, when you have 2 planets together, isn't really discrete. So if you had, for example, we have the Sun and Mars in exact conjunction on Monday at 5:42 a.m., well, that doesn't mean anymore that the Sun is discrete and the Mars is discrete and they just happen to be together. It's like those energies are all really intertwined together. So ego, in that case, ego can be really forward looking, and the Sun is ego, and the Sun can be creativity and forward energy, but so does Mars. Mars is a warrior, and I'm going to go sometimes make conflict, and that could be happening this week, especially when you've got the kind of the obstacles here happening. This entity made by Mercury, Sun, Mars, and Venus all together, kind of like a crazy person. Is if you have harmonious energy with, the fighter and forward achiever thing, and then you've got egotistical creativity with the Sun and everybody loves me, and then Mercury with his rapid racing thoughts, it could really feel like a crazy person just with this stellium right here. But now there's nowhere to go with this energy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. There is a place to go, but it feels like the most obvious is imagining something else, because here's the deal, and this is going to be true for all of this week. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this slide, and then we're just going to roll through the next 7. So Jupiter, this is the normal go-to place for expansion and and optimism. Jupiter is optimistic. It's feel good. It feels good with Jupiter in a pleasant alignment. But all these four stellium planets are, kind of naturally seeking Jupiter, but this one's blocked because square means, conflict. And so that energy creates obstacles when you go to that energy. Jupiter is also squared, and it has been squared to Neptune for some time, but we also have an opposition. Signifies a conflict. It's a conflict between whatever kind of energetic entity is created by those four versus what they are imagining, either in the future or even right now, or even in the past. I mean, or even currently, you could be seeing things, and Neptune puts hallucinations out, mysticism, drug use, that kind of thing. It is all escapism in Neptune, but that's on the other side of this stellium. The stellium doesn't have to be a negative thing. I kind of made it out to be a crazy person, but that's because there's no energy for this to go if you follow the red arrows. But here's the deal. So Jupiter is all about expansion. The green arrows indicate the places where this energy can go, and one of those is going to go to this trine over here to Saturn and Pluto, who are conjunct together. Now, Saturn is limitation, so it's not the natural go-to. Planets, well, egos and soul, I guess, soul energies don't like to go to Saturn. It's normally has a bad rap as a malefic, and of course the Pluto has got this destroyer kind of attitude, but the green trine here is easy, and so the easy energy is naturally going to go towards the limitation and avoid the expansion. So what does that feel like? That feels like it's imploding. And if it's like you're like, you can't go anywhere else, so I go to the old harsh dad, and it's like the prodigal son, and then dad, all dad says is no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. And then the older brother, the old abusive brother's Pluto, and just wants to shoot down everything that you're trying to do. So that's the sensation. So this entity feels a little nuts because there's a lot of Mars and a lot of Sun. Those are conjunct, by the way, early in the morning on Monday. So you wake up on Monday, this is Labor Day. This is kind of ironic. It's Labor Day. Well, it's kind of matches actually. So Labor Day is, you're taking a day off, or most of us are. I'm not, but Sun, Mars is both go get 'em energy. So you wake up and they're together and boom, we're going to tackle issues. But paradoxically, this is the day you have off, or most of us have off. So now, and not to mention, like, I don't even feel like going to the trine over here because that's the limiting side of things. I don't like going over to the square because that creates obstacles. So I'm just kind of stuck here. And you can go to Uranus. This is kind of dying out though. It's the Uranus aspect is changing everything. That's certainly an outlet, and I like it because I'm an Aquarian and Uranus rules Uranus. So I don't mind that. So a lot of people are kind of tired of the whole change thing. So if you are, well, Uranus doesn't care. It's going to change anyway. So that's going to be mainly with Mercury. All right, so that's the energy, and it's accelerating, as I have, accelerating shrinkage or implosion, because these aspects, everything that I just talked about, the trine over to Saturn, the square, the T-square, except for this trine to Uranus, all of the T-square is getting stronger. So it's an accelerating feeling of implosion. All right, let's go into Tuesday. And now we'll start to speed things up because, nothing really changes here. It changes which planet goes exact, and we'll have all that data. The later slides do look pretty confusing because I got all the times in there. But the energies pretty much remain the same. implosion into change, because you made kind of that expiring Uranus trine, but you also have the moon making an opposition to Uranus. So you have a fleeting, like you feel like something's going to change from this implosion that's happening. Okay, that's Tuesday. On Wednesday, we are left with imagining, like we're almost automatically imagining the end of this implosion. This is kind of like if some of you are in the stock market, maybe remember 2008 when the stocks were plummeting and the markets were plummeting. It's called kind of like catching a falling knife. It's like when to start buying in, or else risking that you're buying in only to lose even more money. And that's kind of what this sensation is like. It's like, is this the end now? Is this the end of the craziness? No, it's not. This is going to be lasting all week long, and the solutions aren't created until the latter part of the week. So hang with me. But on Wednesday, kind of the key concept is that we're imagining this has got to be the end. This has to be. This has got to be it. But it's not. On Thursday, this is the real quiet solution day because Mercury and Saturn go exact. And Mercury's really catching up with the sun, going past the sun. It's just number 2 in the stellium now. And it makes an exact conjunction in the morning, 7:38, with Saturn. By the way, this side is also big too. So you've got this big channel here just now starting to really getting robust. And it doesn't feel good necessarily. I mean, a trine makes it easy. And so, but we're going easy back to this old man who keeps telling us no, and the older brother who keeps abusing us. So it doesn't feel all that great, but there is a solution in this, and that Saturn is not all bad. And Saturn, is limitation, it's loss, it's fear. It's also very structured. And so in this trine, Saturn easily communicates to your mind quietly and assuredly that there's a solution. And it's very logical because, Mercury and Saturn work well with solutions, but it's very methodical. And it's not going to be one of those things where it's going to feel automatically great. Nothing that Saturn gives you feels good until you've finished the project. And it's always like hurdles and obstacles and all these things and all these hoops you got to jump through and all that. But once you get it done, that's when it feels good. But you'll get that little snippet on Thursday. It's a little snippet of time in the morning, particularly in the morning, when your rational mind might get a glimpse of the solution. Now, it's not going to be an imagination. That's Neptune. Neptune's going to be false to you pretty much all week. Let me say that again. Neptune is going to trick you with like imagination of maybe nostalgia of the past, like everything was better in the past, or hoping for the future, giving you a glimpse of something that's really nice. And, that's all an illusion. I don't want you to think that, you can't be creative. A lot of people who are creative are going to experience blocks this week. And we're going to get into the, this rave mandala. This is human design. And the human design, we're going to get into the I-Ching reading, and it's going to blow your mind. Okay. All right. Now, Friday is like a wound that is pulsing. Okay. Here's why. Because the moon, did I say moon or wound? It's the wound feels pulsing. And so it's because the moon is making an exact conjunction with Jupiter. Most of us are asleep. This is Friday morning. And at the same time, Mercury is going to make an exact square to Jupiter. So it's even more squared up, and Jupiter is more closed off. But the moon making a conjunction with Jupiter is going to feel like yearning for expansion, yearning for the end of this implosion, yearning for the solution right around the corner. Excuse me. Now, so the answer is not to go with Jupiter. You want to, like, the moon is like generating luck. Like, if I could just get a little luck here, if I could just, no, it's not happening. You have to go through the hoops of Saturn and Pluto to get your solution. But the neat thing here is this channel is getting even much stronger. So we have a Sun trine Saturn. This is in the afternoon of Friday. Friday morning, it feels like a big old wound. It feels like someone, you accidentally hit your thumb with the hammer. And it's like after about 10 seconds is when it really starts to pound. And that's what this feels like in the morning. But in the afternoon, that pounding is still there. But you realize, I have to go do this thing. I have to jump through these hoops. I just know it now. Sun is going to trine Saturn at 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Venus is going to trine Pluto. So we've got all four of these planets in reality that are getting even closer to a climax of this trine energy over to Pluto and Saturn. Okay. And so in the morning, yearning for luck, we talked about that. But in the PM, it's a balance of power. Venus is about balance and harmony. And she is making a direct trine with Pluto. And guess what Pluto also is power and control. So there's this harmonious feeling that I have control over the situation, even with my thumb pounding from accidentally hitting it. That's the Jupiter is being blocked off feeling. All right, next. Saturday is this one's tricky because this one's going to feel like Mercury is going direct opposition to Neptune. So it's at its climax, and that could be really tricky because Neptune really shouldn't be trusted when it's connected to Mercury like that in an opposition. You're going to have to balance those. You're going to have to balance between your kind of rational, logical thoughts and then the daydreamy illusion, hallucination side of your mind. That's the Neptune side. And those are not really going to be in harmony. So you're going to have to balance out yourself. But meanwhile, this channel is getting stronger. The outlet to Saturn. It's like, okay, I know I've got to do it. And then Sunday, look at this. It turns green. I'll let you see this slideshow. It's not that wound anymore. And this makes everything better. The moon makes a conjunction with Saturn, and then very shortly after a conjunction with Pluto. But look at now, we got 3 planets here, 4 planets here. This is clearly the highway. This, by the way, is the solution. And you're just good with it. You're emotionally confident with knowing that you're with your power if you do what you need to be doing. And that I can't say Saturn any better than that. This is what he needs to be doing. He tells you, you just need to do it. Oh, okay, I'll go do it. And this gaggle down here will do it with harmony. That's Venus. Good rational logic thought. It'll be logical. The Sun, ego. The ego will get satisfied in this maneuver because ego does feel content after it finishes an objective, after a goal, after a project completed. And of course, Mars is going to get his time to carry out his duties as well. So it's all going to be harmonious, especially on Sunday. But there's some things that you have to do. You must pay attention to the I-Ching after this. I'm going to talk about that. But main thing here is, and I have this up here, you have to accept or pay. If you're still resisting this solution that Saturn and Pluto have, you're going to pay. And you're going to pay by feeling trapped in an implosion. Okay, now let's get into the I-Ching. Did that all make sense? If not, drop me a question down below in the comments. And I didn't do a bunch of slides for the I-Ching reading. What we do is we cast the coins And we ask the universe to say, hey, what's the biggest influence? And then we also say, if there is a change hexagram, i.e., if there's any change lines here, then that automatically changes to the next hexagram, and this one becomes the solution. So you can already see that according to the I-Ching, the hexagram solution is conflict. This is crazy how this stuff aligns. Let's finish up the influence, because the influence is darkening of the light. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And where do we start? This is the rave mandala. And it says, by design, progress cannot exist in a vacuum and is dependent on interaction. We have two change lines, number 2 and number 5. And number 2 is the creative block. This is for all those creative people who need to be creating new things. But this week, it is not a very creative week, and it's not a good week to get stuff done. But I'm digressing. I'm getting into the solution again. So number 2, gate 2 is lack of inspiration, which stops progress. Attunement, let me skip to the punchline here. Creativity and the muse will always come and go. So don't stress out when creativity goes this week. Don't try to push it. That's the convergent mind, which in the psychology of creativity will shut your creativity down like no other. Don't be seeking creativity. The harder you seek it, the more it will be gone. But we need to take action, however mundane, to overcome the feeling of emptiness. The actions being inspired do not further progress. The need for change and the fear of stasis. In the I-Ching, there isn't really a lot of finite suggestions. It's kind of like a theme, and that's what we've got in these gates in the Rave Mandala. But before we get into the solution, I want to spend some time talking about reading directly out of, and this was a typo. So, yeah, I've got a typo, so I can't continue on this particular project. Let's go into the solution, because that's what matters. The solution is 6, and it's conflict. And this is amazing because there is a lot of conflict in the astrology, and it's showing up in the collective unconscious. In terms of character, is the third indication of conflict in terms of character is presented by the combination of deep cunning within and fixed determination outwardly. A person of this character will certainly be quarrelsome. All right. Conflict develops when one feels himself to be the right and runs into opposition. If one is not convicted of being in the right, opposition leads to craftiness or high-handed encroachment, but not to open conflict. If a man is entangled in conflict, his only salvation lies in being so clear-headed and inwardly strong that he is always ready to come to terms by meeting the opponent halfway. Is that negotiation? Yeah, I think it does sound like negotiation. But there's more. To carry on the conflict to the bitter end has evil effects even when one is in the right, because the enmity is then perpetuated. It is important to see the great man, and the great man is the big negotiator, is to end the conflict. Conflict within weakens the power to conquer danger without. The image, heaven and water, goes their opposite ways, the image of conflict. Thus, in all his transactions, the superior man carefully considers the beginning. One more thing, and this is the solution again, number 6. If rights and duties are exactly defined, or if in a group the spiritual trends of the individuals harmonize, the cause of the conflict is removed in advance. The cause of the conflict is removed in advance. So in other words, what we have to do is not just try to end the conflict, but to certainly be willing to meet the opponent halfway. And a lot of you, this conflict is going to be happening inside. And so you're going to be willing to meet yourself halfway. It's not about doing nothing. It's not about ignoring the strife, but it is about the spiritual trends of the individual, because they're in that right group. The cause of the conflict is removed in advance. I want to do one more thing, and I want to look at the Sidereal Astrology, because this is also where we derive solutions. The inside is the tropical. All this gaggle's happening in the Virgo sign of Virgo. But in the constellation, this gaggle is happening in Leo. And Leo is a fire sign. This gaggle up here, if I go to this one, where this gaggle here, this is Sunday, midday, or I'm sorry, 8:45 to be exact. But nonetheless, that's happening in Sagittarius, another fire sign. So one could argue that with all that fire, it's time to go do stuff. No, we've talked about how you don't want to perpetuate the fire, or you don't want to perpetuate the conflict. If you perpetuate the conflict according to hexagram 6, you will perpetuate to the very end, and a very evilness comes in there. In this case, we want to use the fire energy to make this conduit wholesome, true, and just get started on doing what it is you need to be doing. That's the Saturn. Saturn will not tell you to do something that isn't logical, rational, and it will probably suck, because it probably includes a lot of work and a lot of suffering. But you've got the Mars with you, you've got the Sun with you, you've got a good strong thinker in Mercury with you, and then you've got Venus, which is the harmonizing thing. That's what the I-Ching was talking about, is entering the right group, and that spiritual energy from that group ends the conflict in advance. But you have to prove your faith by starting to carry out the actions appropriated by Saturn and Pluto. All right, I hope that makes sense. Let's get to the summary slides and get on with our week. This is going out to National Dream Center on Monday, spinning in mud. That's what the collective unconscious is feeling. And this is the slide shows that are coming out on social media under National Dream Center are more about the influence, and the solution is more on intervention. So if you really want to be reminded of the solutions, I would highly recommend going to social media and following our page, Intervention. And by the way, we're going to gen up a new season of Intervention Radio. We have a new book by Dr. Stephen Hayes, originator, creator of ACT therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. And we are going to have him back on the show. We're currently working with the publisher to get him signed up. All right. But this week, the influence, mega T-square causing feelings of stuck, implosion, defeat. The solution is hexagram 6, strength to halt action, strength to resolve the conflict, resistance to enduring the conflict to the end, pouring all your Mars, Sun, Mercury, Venus energy into what you should be doing, even though it doesn't feel like that's the easiest route. The easiest route is not at play this week. It's going to be a hard, roughening week. Don't further the conflict, but just do what you need to be doing in order to, make it through this week and what Saturn and Pluto are asking you to do. Watch out for those illusions. Watch out for the fake Neptune escapism solutions. If it's an escape from this feeling of stuckness, then it's probably not the right solution. It's probably coming from Neptune. If it feels like it's rational, but gosh, it's a lot of work to do that. Well, that's probably the Saturn choice. All right. That's all I've got. Enjoy, everybody. Went 5 minutes over. Take care of yourself this week. All right. And by the way, those who are interested, next week, I'm going to fully intend on doing another CIRF report, and I'll have one ready, but I'm doing a trip to Iowa and coming back on that weekend. So it'll either be really late on Sunday or it'll actually be on Monday. I don't know, but I'll have all that stuff ready to go. All right. Have a good week, everybody. Cheers.